Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Capitalist Corner. I'm your host, Mark Pellegrino, and the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-host and vice chair of the American Capitalist Party, Michael Liebowitz, who also hosts his own fantastic show, The Rational Egoist, on which I made an appearance recently, promoting our new show, which will be on my Patreon, about the intersection of psychology and philosophy. I think it's going to be super helpful for folks out there. It'll be super helpful for me, because we'll sort of be thinking about things as we go along, and not only revealing things that have helped us, but probably discovering new things as well. But Michael, anything new going on the Rational Egoist that we should know about?
We still got your episode up. When we're done here today, I got an interview to do with the economist Donald Boudreaux. I'm hoping to have that up tomorrow. Should be great. That's about it. And I wanted to tell you something, but now I don't remember what it was.
Was it because I had to get up and rescue my dog? Did I distract?
No, it was something, and I just can't remember it. It must not have been that important.
So maybe some people out there in the audience, I don't know if Ashley Rizzi is out there, was expecting the little bumper music. It is going to be happening tomorrow, folks. We have some awesome bumper music. We have an awesome introduction and probably video introduction as well. So things are going to start looking very different on the show. And so prepare for it. So Ashley, I will. It's not ready yet. It's not ready yet. We need to experiment with it, and it will be up tomorrow. I promise. Okay.
Oh, Greg Lewis wants to tell me. Yeah, I did appear on a show yesterday called Fabian Liberty. I posted it to Twitter. He says the show was 4 hours, but I was only on for an hour and a half discussing objectivism, anarchism, and the like. Very well-mannered, polite host. I enjoyed myself a lot. Check it out. I think you'll like it.
So give us a thumbnail. What did you think of Fabian, of the Fabian character?
Well, I disagree with him. Obviously, he's an anarchist, but but it was a good show. I mean, he's an intelligent guy. He's well-mannered. He's not a jerk when he discusses. He can disagree. He's willing to say he doesn't know when he doesn't know, and that's something I always respect. So, it was nice. It was a really good talk. I think so anyway. I wonder what Greg Lewis thinks. Maybe he can tell us in the chat here.
Yeah, Greg, if you have any comments, I'd love to know. It's always good when capitalists can come up against anarchists and differentiate between the two of us, because some folks don't understand the difference between a capitalist and an anarchist. They think they're.
Do you have a problem drying off when you come out of the shower?
Such a random question. I no.
I do. I can dry off. Like, I get out of the shower and I dry and dry. I'm feeling it now, still damp. I dry and dry and dry and dry, but then I'm still like, I'm not wet. I just have this, like, I don't know.
You're sweaty.
No, I don't think that's it. No, what I think it is in the shower, you have a situation where the steam fills the air. So now I get out of the shower and I'm drying off, but the steam is still settling on me. I think that is what happens.
Thank you for that non sequitur. So what I wanted to get to,
I was looking for an answer. That doesn't happen to you?
No, it does not happen to me, Mike. The only thing I can come up with, if you're still feeling moist after a shower, is that you are sweaty.
Open the bathroom door. That might be a good idea. I don't know how the rest of the occupants of the home will feel about that, but it's all about me.
Yes. So they tell us, right? They say rational egoism is a radical egotisticalism. It's all about you, my friend. Nobody else. We are all islands, apparently, according to our opponents. I wanted to start off with a very chilling tweet, not tweet, but a little note from Truth Social, Trump's site, where he said this. Folks, I want you to hear this and tell me what you think. So Trump says, despite very high popularity and according to many among the greatest 8 months in presidential history, ABC and NBC fake news, two of the worst and most biased networks in history, gave me a 97% bad stories. And if that is the case, they are simply an arm of the Democrat Party and should, according to many, He always says this. It's everybody else's opinion. I'm just going along with it.
A lot of people are saying.
A lot of people are saying this. A lot of people, I don't know, it's just many people saying this kind of thing. They have their licenses revoked by the FCC. Many people, lots of people, so many people are saying this that I'm getting overwhelmed that the FCC should revoke their licenses. I would be totally in favor of that because they are so biased and untruthful, an actual threat to our democracy. Now, not pulling the licenses of legitimate news agencies, that's not a threat to democracy. Throwing the presidential power around and the power of the FCC to actually censor, in other words, do something that is constitutionally forbidden against the press, that's not a threat to democracy. It's the fact that these news agencies don't report positively on Trump. This is scary. This is scary, man. Tell me your feelings about this, Michael. Would a capitalist president do this?
No, but I had a brief message back and forth with Jim Valiant this morning, and I told him that I hate Trump. I mean, I make no bones about it, but he's actually worse than what I thought he would be. Like, I thought a lot of it was just bluster and bullshit, which is what he does a lot of, but he's actually doing some of this stuff. And the thing, when you look at this, I guess it's not a tweet. I don't know what the hell it's called, but this is a guy who's clearly, in my view, like it's as somebody who studied psychology a lot, it's clearly he has narcissistic personality disorder. Like, I'm not like being hyperbolic. I don't do that. It's clear. And so he has to be the focus of all the good news. And when he's not, that's a problem. So that's bad right off the bat. But then he's talking about taking away licenses and all that shit. It's absolutely insane. Now, Akira Felix says this is no different from leftists saying Fox News is run by Nazis and should be closed by the government. I got to tell you, though, I don't know about leftist. Leftist is a very vague term. What I mean by that is I don't know who really it's referring to. My friend Andy Bernstein often does that. The left. But okay, well, who are we talking about, right? I don't remember, and I might be wrong. I don't watch the news anymore, so I could be wrong. I just read it. But I don't remember Democrats coming out, Democratic politicians I'm talking about, or a Democratic president saying Fox News is run by Nazis and it should be closed by the government. I just don't remember that.
Well, they do highly critique Fox. They point them out as if they are dominating the news culture and constantly broadcasting fake news. Obama used to call them out all the time. But you're right.
Closing of them,
I
no.
don't recall them ever saying they should be taken off the air. They certainly critique them a lot and tried to expose them a lot for being, the one conservative commentarian news organization basically in news, and tried to endow them with much more power than they had. But never this outright call to pull the licenses of Fox News. And if anybody can contradict us on that, please show us in the chat, because I recall no.
I don't either. And as far as criticizing, you're right about that. I remember that happening. But I mean, I remember conservatives and Republicans criticizing the left-wing media as long as I've been paying attention. And by the way, I think that a lot of these criticisms about the left-wing media are accurate. And I think the criticisms about Fox News are accurate, a lot of them. But when you start talking about closing them down, especially when he's filing lawsuits, it's scary stuff. And it goes beyond just this, as we'll see in some of the other stories. He's unhinged. And I think I saw something, Bill Maher doesn't seem to think that Trump is going to step down this time around. And he did, because he didn't last time. And Bill Maher says he doesn't think he will this time. And if that happens, we've got a serious issue, because there's a lot of people out there that defend him. And this, and I'm not saying this is to you, Akira Felix, but it does apply to a lot of people. The left, this hyper focus on the Democrats as if Trump can do no wrong when he's the one in power, I find ridiculous. I've seen posts on Facebook of the Democrats, they're doing this, the Democrats are doing that. They're, what's his name? David Harriman, the guy who wrote the inductive leap. He was an objectivist, calls himself is an objectivist. I don't know, but he went through this list of how bad the left is. Meanwhile, we have a Republican president who's militarizing the police, stampeding the Constitution, buying shares in companies on part of the federal government. I mean, and we're going to focus on the left and bullshit at that. Like he's saying, oh, the left supports transvestite strip shows for kindergartners. No, they don't. I mean, that's just bullshit. It doesn't happen. But the people in the comments are like, right on, brother. You know what I mean? So the problem here is, I think a lot of people get all their news from right-wing outlets. So they're in this bubble and they just believe it all. And it's a scary situation in my view.
With the assumption that I think was correct 2.5, maybe 3 decades ago, that the right wing at least had 1 foot on the ground, 1 foot grounded in reality. At one time, I think right-wing journalists and some right-wing commentators were actually the real intellectuals out there that were really, calling things for what they were. Let's not forget that the FCC was created by Roosevelt as a means of manipulating the people who own the airways into supporting the New Deal. And he used the FCC liberally to cudgel people into submission so that he could pass his New Deal. And radio stations that spoke out against the New Deal, well, they didn't get their licenses, and so until they actually supported what the imperial president was doing. So it's not like this is new, but it's certainly new in the way that Trump is doing it, in the blatant disregard that he has for the Constitution, and in the way in which he is embracing the imperial presidency. And more alarming, people who should be the stoppers of this, guys like Mark Levin, I see on the radio, he's a constitutional conservative, standing up for this guy who a few years ago was calling Obama the imperial president. What is this but the imperial presidency? This is a terrible, terrible thing. Now, look, I, like you, never thought Trump would go as far as he did. I thought he was bluster. I thought he was talk. I thought, here's a guy who's taking advantage of the fact that the left has dominated the culture for decades upon decades. They've marginalized people on the right. They've condescended to people on the right. This is the right giving a slap in the face, saying, now we've got control. We're going to smack you back. And he's playing off of that antipathy between the two sides. I never thought that he would really do the things that he is doing right now. And I have to say, I was wrong. So when you express fear that he might try to go for a 3rd term, which he's already floated, folks, it's not like this is an imaginary thing. He's like, yeah, we're thinking about doing it, and the way we would get around the Constitution is we'd have J.D. Vance run, and then he would step down, and I would take his place. These are, even in jest, folks. This is not a funny thing. All right. That is a direct violation of the Constitution, which at this point, as Americans, we should be rather used to. It seems like both sides have an antipathy for the Constitution. It gets in their way. And for Trump, it gets in his way. I like the Constitution getting in Trump's way. Unfortunately, he seems to be winning in his war with the American people. Essentially, folks, that's what it is. The Constitution is your bulwark against authoritarianism. You should cling to it like a life raft, like a lifesaver, because without it, the federal government can run roughshod over you, which is what appears to be happening at the moment. I want to answer a question here from Kathy Cassio. She says, how far do you think his fellow Republicans let him go? As far as he wants. And I think that the evidence is overwhelming that that's the truth. I mean, if we go back to 2020, after January 6th, Trump was dead. He was dead in the water. And within a few days, we had Kevin McCarthy went down to Mar-a-Lago and kissed his ring. Brought him right back to life. And Lindsey Graham, there's no Republican Party. Do you think it was just that who brought him back to life, or do you think it was the lawfare on the left that brought him back to life?
No, I think that if they would have just, I think the going after him legally, I think that helped. But what I think that the Republicans could have said at the beginning, back then, we're done with this dude. That's it. As Lindsey Graham did. He said, I'm off. When he was still scared to death and his little panties were probably a little soiled. He said, I'm done with this. But then a few days and his political mind got back and he decided to go with Trump. And the January 6th, what actually happened is basically gone now. I mean, all the people who participated are out of prison. There's people who participated who are like, I don't know if it's considered in the administration, but they're working now for the government, right? He's firing prosecutors and stuff who investigated it. I think it was prosecutors. Don't quote me, but he's firing people who were involved in the investigation. This is not good shit. And he's got the right wing, echo chamber who has promoted this various narratives. Who knows which one's true? It was Ray Epps. It was the FBI orchestrated it. It was Nancy Pelosi's fault. It was Antifa. Whatever it is, they've come up with all new narratives for what actually occurred. It's scary. And I don't know. I just do not think that the Republicans are going to stand in his way. And just an end comment on the lawfare. I think it's important to understand that he had multiple cases, right? Multiple things of which they went at him. I think it's important to differentiate. The case in New York, from everything I could gather from the legal experts I've talked to, was pure bullshit, right? The case where he stole or took the documents and then wouldn't let the FBI see him, from what I hear, that's legit. And I'm not talking about hearing it from, Joe down at the corner store. I'm talking to constitutional professors who know what they're talking about. That, and also some of the January 6th stuff was legit. Now, they went after him with this lawsuit in New York and that, no, I get it. And
unfortunately, that fueled the conspiratorial.
Sure, right. Of course,
that became the dominant.
Sure, right. And by the way, one could argue, and I think there's a strong argument to it. Well, Hillary wasn't charged when she had stuff on her server. That's all fair. I agree with that. Part of that is that prosecutors have a lot of discretion, and that leads to their ability to not charge and charge whomever they want. So
as Biden should have been charged and wasn't, because the prosecutor decided, as a doddering old man, there's no jury that would.
Yes. The world. Yeah. So while I'm not saying
this fuels the paranoia,
it absolutely does,
and that the system is stacked against them. And so right now, this is as Bolton said, as John Bolton said, this is a retributive presidency. This is a revenge time for the not just President Trump, but for the people on the right who feel like they were deliberately marginalized. They feel like they were, whether or not they were, that they were debanked, right? This is what the Trump administration and his kids are trying to put out there. Like they had 200 accounts taken away from them from various banks, and that this didn't just happen to people who were politically high profile, but actually to people who express themselves politically on the right. They were debanked as well. What does Deepo Diego say?
He agrees with Akira. Akira basically said this. January 6th was peanuts compared to the Antifa BLM destruction of businesses and lives in America for a year and a half. Yet no one gave that any kind of a proper attention. I disagree. What do you say?
Well, I think that the BLM riots, look, the kind of attention the BLM riots got from the media was a very, very mixed. And it had a great deal of support from the bastion of celebrities in Hollywood who bailed a lot of these violent people, Antifa people, out of jail. I don't know exactly how many of these people actually faced prison sentences the way the people in January 6th did, but certainly their violence was on a far greater scale. I mean, I think taking over a section of Seattle and literally making it a no-go zone for police, literally is one of the worst things that possibly happened, given that there were rapes and murders inside that area and no first responders could go in there to help people. But for the mayor of that city of Seattle to say this is a summer of love, these protests are legitimate despite the damages that they were doing. In Portland, the same horrible things, burning down courthouses and police precincts with police in them. I mean, tens of, I don't know exactly what the death toll was, but it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 or 50 human beings were killed in these things, and billions of dollars in property damage and looting. And I don't know that a lot of people actually experienced the legal system acting against them and protecting us from them. So in many respects, that went by while the January 6th folks experienced heavy prosecutorial pressure. I mean, some of these people stayed in jail for a couple of years, and some of them in isolation, from what I understand. And you know, with charge upon charge upon charge upon charge racked on them, and you know how this goes when somebody, you know, pleads guilty to something because the number of charges that they're putting on them, the plea bargain is just, you know, they decide that going through the legal process is going to bankrupt them or destroy them in some way, so they just plead in order to avoid you know, being destroyed. So yeah, I think January 6th has received undue attention, except for this one issue. It happened during election. There was a process going on at that time, and even though many of the people who were seen within the Capitol confines who actually got in there did not appear to be trying to actually stop the process at the time, it did, because Congress had to evacuate. So that does seem like a clear attempt to interfere with an election, and the president's message to them was that shenanigans were going on and the people needed to stop it, basically. So on the scale of things, BLM was far worse, but January 6th has that has hanging over its head that a legitimate procedure of the United States of the election of the president of the United States. There was a seeming attempt to at least halt it or at least delay it. What say you, Michael?
I hit the wrong thing. Enric captures the essence of my thought. He says attacking the constitutional process of government can affect the future of the republic. It's a different impact than the riots, both terrible. I agree. And depending on what Diego means by it was peanuts, if you're referring to death toll and amount of violence and longevity and things of that nature, then I don't really have an issue with what he said. But when you think of, I want to really focus here on what January 6th was, what happened, like what led up to it, what Trump was trying to do. He literally was trying to slate fake electors to keep himself in office. There was a plan going into it to say that the election was stolen. We know that because Steve Bannon said prior to the election, what we're going to do is Trump's going to claim that the election's stolen. Of course, it's not going to be, but he's going to claim it. It was a plan to do it. He repeated that lie over and over again. Dinesh D'Souza produced a bullshit movie, 2,000 Mules, to push this narrative. You had right-wing news stations pushing the narrative. You had people that stormed the Capitol in an attempt to stop the certification of electors and were calling for the murder of the vice president of the United States, and the president did nothing about it. So in terms of long-term ramifications and the potential damage that could have been caused by it, in my mind, January 6th was way worse than the BLM riots.
And since he's still using the narrative today,
sure,
and hasn't given it up, it definitely sows seeds of doubt in the minds of many people with respect to the legitimacy of the election. I know several people who still think that election was rigged, despite all of the evidence to the contrary.
Plenty. I mean, there's actually a group, and then we can move on from this, but they put out a group of constitutionalists. They put out a paper called Lost, Not Stolen, and it goes over all the court cases that Trump lost. But the conservatives even have this narrative. I shouldn't say conservatives. The Trumpists have a narrative. No, Trump never had his day in court. Pure bullshit. So all you have to do is go read it. Lost, Not Stolen.
Yeah, their narrative is that they were thrown out on procedural grounds. And
that's not true. It's just not true. I mean, they repeat that over and over again.
Michael, is there a way to post that? Can you find that?
Yeah, I'll have to go find it. But yeah, I'll post it to Twitter and I'll post it to Facebook. But yeah,
because there's people very close to me who are academics, people who are extremely intelligent, and also people very high up in the IT industry who investigated Maricopa County election in Maricopa County and found lots of anomalies, enough anomalies that they say would have produced a different result in Arizona than did. So I get so many mixed messages. I don't know what's true or false, other than I suspect that the election was won and Trump can't handle it because of the number of court cases that I've seen that have legitimacy, including the cases that have been won against the media recently for libel or defamation lawsuits against the organization that actually provided the machinery for the voting. Well, speaking of this, folks, I mean, you want to talk about fishy shenanigans. How do you pronounce it, Ghislaine Maxwell, or Epstein's friend?
I think it's Ghislaine, but I'm not sure.
Well, somebody can help us with the pronunciation of that. I feel like your own Brooke, who can't pronounce anything properly right now. But anyway, she's had a several hours conference with Trump's former personal attorney. That has revealed, of course, that Trump was never seen doing anything appropriate when around Epstein. Was never, I don't think, even on the island, and so has been exonerated from his involvement, quote unquote, in the Epstein files. Now, Michael, isn't it a little fishy that his own personal attorney interviews this person under the guise of the Department of Justice, and that shortly after this interview, she gets transferred to a minimum security prison? And do you think she may be pardoned later on for now saying that none of the people who were suspected of being involved?
Yeah, she didn't just clear Trump.
From Clinton on, Clinton, Dershowitz. Every one of the power players that were potentially, there was potentially dirt on. Now, none of them were seen doing anything particularly strange.
Nobody did anything. Nothing to see here, folks.
Even though she testified previously that she had seen Dershowitz getting a massage and walking around in a bathrobe.
It's all mistaken. But the thing is, first of all, I believe that she's still in the appeal process. Did she plead guilty or did she lose at trial?
That I don't remember.
Because if she lost the trial, let me find out. Let me just do a quick Google search here.
So Stephanie says Jahane. Does that say Jahane or Ghislaine?
No, Ghislaine, not Jahane.
Ghislaine. Okay, sorry. My contact lenses, Persephone, don't permit me to see properly, which is strange because they're supposed to help me see. Yeah, so when you find that out, Michael, let me know. But now all people have been exonerated. She is now in a minimum security prison. And I suspect that Trump will use his pardon power to pardon her. Now, how he's going to get away with that with the likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene and some of the other conspiratorial MAGA people out there who are dogging his heels for actual evidence on this, I don't know. Maybe they're movable, right? Maybe they'll find something else to sink their teeth into because that's just the way they roll. But she looks like her tune is changing.
Okay, so yes, Ghislaine Maxwell went to trial, which means she's likely in the appellate process, which means she'd be an idiot to admit guilt in any range. But there's also that by saying Trump didn't do anything, she knows that, Trump's the one that can pardon her. The fact that there's Republicans out there like Congressman Jim Jordan saying, oh, she cleared Trump, and they can say that with a straight face is scary. Because it's, first of all, she's a convicted sex offender, right? Who's still in prison trying to get out, has never, as far as I know, expressed any remorse about the situation, nothing. So she has every incentive in the world to lie, but because it's for their almighty hero, this is absolving. It's so fucking dumb, Mark. Like, I just can't.
Ends justify the means, my friend.
Yeah, but it's just like beyond that. Like, I can't even believe that somebody's brain could be this much mush.
But how can they not see the conflict of interest? How can anybody on the right with a brain and a sense of integrity not see that this is a rigged game from second one?
I think that I always follow Hamlin's razor, right? never ascribe to malice that which can be explained by incompetence. I think this is largely malice. I can't believe that people are that dumb. I just, like, if they were, they would drown in the shower, right? I mean, these are just, it's so absurd to think that Ghislaine Maxwell cleared Trump of anything, that this absolves him. And I'm not a big believer. If you ask me, I think Trump probably wasn't involved in the Epstein stuff. Like, if I don't know, I'm saying, but if you said, look, here's a gun to your head, we're going to either pull the trigger, if you get this wrong, and said, was he involved or not, I'd say no. But I don't know. But to think that because Ghislaine Maxwell says so, like, that's so bizarre. But whatever, we're in the age of the Donald. He can do no wrong. He could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue in front of them and they would still support him.
And
that's
worse,
where we are.
Worse, the pundits on Fox are still saying what people like about this guy is he speaks plainly. He says the truth. I have yet to see this guy say something true on television. I'm exaggerating, but I'm almost...
No, you're right. You're right, though. They're mistaking political incorrectness for honesty.
Yeah, and brashness and crassness and a gutter attitude and poor use of language for being down with the people. I mean, it's so condescending. That's a different kind of condescending than the left. I mean, the left condescended to us voters in a different way. The right has their own method, and it sucks equally bad. I got to tell you. Did you hear him? You know, he's doing a beautification of Washington thing, right? This is a guy who's supposed to be cutting our budget, but of course he's throwing hundreds of millions of dollars into the beautification of Washington for the 250th anniversary of America. And you know, he's reseeding and regrassing much of the parkland over there. And did you hear him talk about this? I'm so tired of hearing this out of his mouth, because it's regrassing the entire thing. There's nobody, you know, I have golf courses all over the world. There's nobody who knows more about grass than I do. I know more about grass probably than any other human being on the face of the earth.
He knows more about everything than everything.
I think there's actually a compilation tape of him saying that he knows more about the economy than anybody on earth. He knows more about real estate than anybody else on earth. He knows more about grass than anybody else on earth. He knows more about... I don't think there's a topic that Trump does not think he knows more than anyone on the face of the earth. And he says it with a straight face. Like, will somebody slap him, please? Will a reporter please?
Whoa.
Slap him.
Mark is kidding.
I'm inciting violence.
Mark is kidding. We're joking.
Remember,
we tell a lot of jokes on the Capitalist Corner. Just tune in for our out of context clips and you'll see we are very humorous here.
Cash Patel is coming after me, but look, it was a satire. It was a joke. It didn't really mean it. And remember, my view is not representative of the view of the American Capitalist Party. It is my own particular view that it wouldn't be such a bad thing on a cartoon, let's say on a Trey Parker cartoon, where he's saying he's the best at everything. That
you know what's crazy?
One of the characters.
In 2016, when they were doing the debates, on the stage, I actually said to myself, if there were a candidate on that stage that got so sick of him running his mouth that they walked over to him and punched him in the face, I would support that candidate in a second.
We are joking, Cash. We just want you to know we are joking. We do not support violence. The American Capitalist Party is the one party that likes to mitigate force and only make it retaliatory. We would never, ever endorse violence against the President of the United States. We are entirely against that. We think he should be voted out of office, perhaps impeached for his egregious overreach of executive power, but all through legal means, my friend. Nothing illegal.
Mark, just let me tell you something. I remember how much I used to love bashing Democrats, right? When, for instance, the idiot Al Gore said that he took the initiative to create the internet, and he was calling for the lockbox that was going to protect Social Security. When Obama wanted to bail out where we did bail out the auto industry, and they excoriated Romney for saying the truth, that they should have let those companies fail. I really like to make those arguments. I'd like to battle ideas and argue about what, given policy and things of that nature. So when Obama was pushing for Obamacare, I was on fire arguing against that. And when he said dumb shit like the automobile was invented in America, or he's been to all 57 states, I love that. But it's just, Yeah, there was so much. And whenever I actually get a chance to hear them talk about their policies, I can, go after them. But I don't know how it's not an emergency that we have a president of the United States who says he's the best at everything, who wants to censor news networks, militarize the police departments, tariff everything, and is buying shares in companies. And we're going to get to the other stuff about the deportations pretty soon, but simply no interest in protecting the Constitution at all. And somehow, it's okay.
Yeah, and folks, no interest in protecting the Constitution means no interest in protecting the rights of the everyday citizens like you and I. James Valiant says a grand jury is already being convened on your incitement to violence against Trump case, boys. We jest, but
no. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, if you ever seen the size of Mark Pellegrino, he's a very large man, and he's intimidating me, and that's what happened here.
Oh, you're going to throw me under the bus?
Oh, 100%. So Ayn Rand fan club, with his silly comments as usual, says, "Oh, it's a good thing you were giving Trump a fair chance at the beginning." I'm sorry, Ayn Rand fan club, but by the time the debates took place, we were already well aware that he was unwilling to cut Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, any of those things. We already knew about his tariffs. We already knew that he was threatening Apple and saying that Apple should be forced to disclose their secrets. We already knew he wanted to build a border wall. We already knew that he said that there should be government-provided health care. So at that point, that wasn't the beginning. His views were well known, and it was also well known that he was had been a Democrat for a large period of his life. So no, Ayn Rand fan club, this was not at the beginning. But nice try. At least you're a person with an open mind when it comes to your fearless leader.
Hey, he asks, is the primary debates or the Hillary debates are you talking about?
Primary. I said if one of the candidates got up and whacked him.
Yeah, it would have been nice as Vivek Ramaswamy didn't jump ship and become a total MAGA.
I don't know. I'm talking about back when he was criticizing Jeb.
Oh, okay. Back. Oh, that's going back. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking 2016 when he had papers, he had the Inquirer lie about Ted Cruz, saying that Ted Cruz was having an affair, when he was mocking Ted Cruz's wife and family before Ted came around and kissed his ass.
Look, he has truly lowered the political discourse in America. I can't say that I don't think it'll get any lower, but the guy surprises me all the time. But now he's inspiring Democrats to do the same. So now you have the Crockett's and Gavin Newsom's of the world now acting tough, and even a local politician here in California who's coming out against Trump. I don't even know what he's running for, but he's coming out as the anti-Trump guy, but he's just as crass. It's like now political discourse is so disgustingly anti-conceptual. I don't know how it could get any lower, but it's possible. Trump. Now, I want to ask you about this, Michael, because you might have more interesting feelings about this than I. Because Trump plans to order an end to cashless bail in D.C. Now, what do you think of this? Do you think cashless bail has been unduly burdensome on, or cash bail has been unduly burdensome on the underprivileged? Do you think the cashless bail has sent criminals out onto the street and increased crime rates? Do you think there's any merit to him doing this in DC, where I think it's probably the only place he has the power to do it? But he's going to try to pressure it federal to go completely federal with this. What do you think about this whole concept?
So I think that the idea that he wants to ban this nationwide is a serious violation of the Constitution, specifically the 10th Amendment. So that I have a big problem with. As far as the concept of cashless bail, I think that that's kind of dumb. I think that it makes sense to have people post a bond so that they know that they're going to lose their money if they don't show up to court. I think that's fine. But the idea, that's not true, Christopher Smith, that I don't like bail. I think bail is fine. I don't think that the purpose of bail should be to prevent people from going out on the street because they haven't been convicted of a crime yet. So when Trump says, for instance, we need to keep people in jail, we need to keep murderers in jail, that's why we need to have, they can't get bail. What he's actually saying is he's assessed them to be guilty before a jury has had a chance, and therefore they should be denied the right to access the streets. Bail is fine. but it needs to be reasonable per the Constitution. And if you're saying that you're going to keep them in jail, they can't make it, it's going to be so high, that's not reasonable. The purpose of bail ought to be to make sure that people go to court, not to keep people who have not been convicted of anything off the street.
Amen to that. So yes, federalizing it would be against the Constitution, and as usual, he's just throwing out red meat to his constituency, who are under the illusion that crime is running rampant throughout the United States when the statistics say something wrong. When the statistics say something different, they're fake. Remember?
Yes.
So when the Bureau of Labor Statistics come out with statistics that he doesn't like, well, he fires the person and gets somebody who he thinks will be more amenable to his position. And now he's talking about crime stats being artificially lowered by the people who do these things in order to make him look bad. So there's really no. You really get the sense that you have no capacity as a human being trying to make choices in the world to grab onto some sense of where the truth is. You know, as voters, we need spaces like this where we can discuss objectively what a person is doing so that we can make the appropriate decisions come voting time. Because certainly both sides are not interested in telling us the truth. They're interested in spinning it to their tribe's advantage. James Valiant, danger to the public is also a valid purpose for yes.
No, it's not. No, it is not. And Jim is wrong. And if you agree with him, you're just as wrong.
Well, look, if the person, you mean to tell me if the person
who's judging this person to be a danger to society? That's what I want to know.
Well,
has it been a jury of his peers?
It would have to be the judge determining this based on the past criminal record of this person.
Okay, so that's what we're going to do now. We're going to let judges take somebody based on past actions for which the person has already paid a penalty for, and now that judge gets to put that person back in prison.
What do you think about the cases of people assaulting people in the streets of New York and then getting out because there's no cash bail there and assaulting
again? I'm not saying there should be no bail. That's not what I'm saying.
But he's saying bail is effective for people who are proven to be.
What he means is to keep people off the street. And what I'm saying is, if you have a society where people are innocent until proven guilty, then you have no business exacting measures that are meant to keep them incarcerated.
So a judge in your mind can't make a determination based on the past person's arrests for violent crimes.
No, you don't. First of all, what about double jeopardy? That's the first thing. So what you're saying is a person should be punished now.
No, that's not double jeopardy.
It is.
If he's brought in, let's say he's brought in for an assault. He has 20 previous arrests for assaults. To make the bail and to make him pay bail or to keep him incarcerated because he is a clear risk to society as a repeat offender, it's highly likely that he's going to go out there and assault somebody again, and this time perhaps murder them by whether he wants to or not. You don't think a judge can make that assessment, a reasonable assessment? You think that's
no? I think that okay. You mentioned 30. What happened to the previous 30 crimes? What happened to those?
Oh, I'm making a hypothetical point. So
no. But I'm asking you, in your hypothetical, the previous 30 arrests, what happened in result of those?
And so in some cases, they spent a month or two in prison for the assault, and then they were let out.
Okay, so those cases were adjudicated, and they're done.
Right, but this shows a clear pattern.
Gotcha. So, but the whole thing is the reason that when a person goes to trial, you cannot bring up their criminal history unless they take the stand, because then you can ask them whatever they want. The reason you cannot bring it up is because you have to judge the person based on the present action. This person has not been adjudicated based on the present action, and we're saying that without a jury finding, judges should get to decide who can and can't go to the street. So you have a situation where you have a president like Donald Trump who's a vindictive dick. He says, look, this guy's got all this record. Let's go and accuse him of something now and get him off the street. The judge complies. No jury finding.
We're gonna have a disagreement about this, but this is a much more sophisticated argument, I think, than we can have in the time that we have allotted to us here, because I think that somebody can seem like can present a clear and present danger to the population, that their past should be taken into consideration under such circumstances.
Under sentencing, I would have no issue with it.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? If the person is found guilty, right, and this person has been found guilty over and over again, now you have a guilty finding. That's fine. But you're talking about a judge making that finding and depriving a person of his liberty without a jury finding that. I don't know. I just don't understand how people don't get that that's a danger to allow judges to make that decision. I think the same thing, by the way, when you're trying to put so-called mentally ill people and lock them up who haven't harmed anybody, who haven't been adjudicated. We have due process for a reason.
Well, for mentally ill people, I thought they had to actually go to a psychiatric court. And it's not necessarily a jury that determines whether or not they're psychologically able to stand trial or psychologically well enough to be outside, but it's a judge that determines those things.
So Jim is talking about something different here. Jim says priors can and should enhance sentencing. So we have, for instance, in Connecticut here, what's it called? Persistent offender laws, where say that you can get 20 years for a burglary, but if you're a persistent offender, they can enhance that sentence by 10 years. But no, that's after the person has been convicted. You're talking about having the police arrest somebody and having a judge determine without a trial that that person is too dangerous to be on the street. He hasn't been convicted.
Yeah. So, Race, are you telling the truth here when you say I didn't have a jury when I was committed? I know that in psychiatric courts there are no juries there. There is a judge, and sometimes that is the case. And although of course, I am as hesitant as you, Michael, to give power to anybody in government positions, undue power. And I know the jury system is our way of preserving our citizen control over the judicial system. It's our check against the judicial system. I still think that a judge can possibly make that determination if somebody is a repeat violent offender, whether or not they should be put in jail for a little bit of time, at least between.
But the person hasn't been found guilty. I don't understand. Like you're assuming guilt.
And what about cases like the subway case where the guy, sets the woman on fire and you see it on film?
Okay. Again, I understand you can come up with extreme cases, but what about AI? What if AI manufactured that?
Now you're sounding like
no, because what I'm telling you, no, I'm not. I'm not at all. And by the way,
no reasonable doubt.
By the way, I'm all for, if a person is convicted, I'm all for tough sentences. I have no problem with it. None. What I'm saying is that you can't just assume somebody's guilty because they've been arrested. And if, as far as the you mentioned that we were talking about the mental illness, I highly recommend What Happened to Deirdre McCloskey. Deirdre McCloskey is also a brilliant economist. Yes, I know. But read What Happened to Deirdre McCloskey.
Oh, do tell really quickly, because even though it's slightly off topic, because her books are fantastic.
Well, Deirdre McCloskey is transgender. Her birth name is Donald McCloskey. And when he decided that he wanted to live his life as a woman, his family had him committed. Not only did the family have him committed, but psychiatrists will actually coach people on what they should do in order to get somebody committed. So you end up with a situation where, because the family doesn't like the behavior, they have people committed. I read Thomas Szasz's book in 2007, I want to say, or 2005. So had to be more than 20 years ago. But you could just look it up.
I don't think that's possible nowadays. I don't think that's possible.
I don't know, but I don't really care. It's not right in the United States of America to lock people up without due process. And again, if somebody doesn't make bail, Madison would think that
This person would have to go to a psychiatric court where they would have to prove
prove based on what? Do you think psychiatry is an exact science?
I don't think so.
I've been to multiple psychiatrists.
I'm not advocating for it.
Here's the thing.
There is supposed to be a due process in place for this kind of thing. And from what I know, I have a friend right now who's going through a psychotic break for the past 5 years. Nobody can commit him. His parents can't commit him. His friends can't commit him. He gets 5150, every, 3 weeks. He's been in jail, at least once. And still nobody can really put this guy in a place where he can be treated for his schizophrenia. Which is pretty serious at the moment. So whatever was happening when Deirdre McCloskey was transitioning, I don't think can happen anymore.
I don't know. What I do know is that here, Ayn Rand fan club is right. Being gay was considered a psychological disorder.
That's
so
true.
Was smoking. So was childhood masturbatory disorder.
Smoking. When was smoking considered a disorder? Because
you got to go through the history.
The United States government used to give cigarettes to the GIs as part of their
Listen. All I'm going to say is go out and get yourself some Thomas Szasz. Manufacture of Madness. Great book. Okay. The point isn't that nobody is ever dangerous. The point is it's more dangerous to have psychiatrists determining to lock people up and judges determining that a person should not be put on the street. Now, Jim Valiant says to me, what would Madison think? Well, what Madison would think will take us back to our original point by Trump wanting to abolish the process of cashless bail throughout the country. What Madison would say is it's none of the federal government's business how states do their bail system. So that's what Madison would say, Jim. And I think you would agree to that. And by the way, I would too. I think that this should be exercised at a state level. I don't think that the federal government has any business getting involved in it.
At least we can agree on that. Now, so the president has, I think, believes that federalizing the police force and sending the National Guard into Washington, D.C. has limited crime there to such a degree that it is now a success enough to bring 2 other cities. And he's talking about bringing it to Baltimore, Maryland. Now, of course, there hasn't been any murders committed, I think, in the last week in Washington, D.C. I guess that's sort of hard to do when there's thousands of National Guardsmen walking around with semi-automatic weapons. Certainly hard to be a criminal under those circumstances. Okay. But apparently the cost of these 400 arrests that have occurred since the National Guard has been there making Washington safe again has been about $1 million a day. $1 million a day, Michael, to make 400 arrests. Now, just let's say those arrests were done in one day. That's $2,500 per arrest, but of course they're not. So, Michael, what do you think of this? This now expanding the National Guard from Washington, D.C. to Maryland, to Baltimore, Maryland, and then to Chicago, perhaps. And who knows, maybe even New York City will see a National Guard contingent coming to their town soon to break the heavy crime wave that we hear from conservative newspapers that's going on there.
Okay, so are you familiar with the debate between T.H. Huxley and Bishop Wilberforce?
Tell me about it.
So they had a debate about evolution, and Wilberforce said to the effect of, I would like Mr. Huxley to tell me whether he's descended from monkeys on his mother's or his father's side. And T.H. Huxley said, the Lord hath delivered him into my hands. Mark, the Lord hath delivered you into my hands. Because you just made the exact point that I was making when it came to bail. What you said was, yes, there hasn't been a murder in a week, but what is the cost? What is the cost in terms of money? What is the cost in terms of violating rights and having police on the street? What would be the cost of putting all these people, these federal agents, federal military in different states? Would it lower crime? Probably, but what's the other side of the ledger? Same thing. Yes, if you don't keep criminals in prison on bail, yes, that'll be dangerous. But what is the cost of allowing judges to make that determination without a jury? What is the cost when that person who ultimately gets found innocent or not guilty has been kept in prison because for 3-4 years waiting for trial? 3-4 years, that person can never get back. What about our system? What happens to that? And it's the same exact principle that you're talking about here. Christopher Smith, it's not a loose comparison. The analogy
I have to say it is a loose comparison, but
it's not.
I'm going to defer to you on the criminal justice system because I feel you know quite a bit more
The
about it.
reason it's not a loose comparison, let me just say what the comparison is. You are talking about what you can do to prevent crime. And the question is the cost worth it? That's the question. And in the case of the bail, the question is the cost worth it? And I am saying, no, it's not. In the question of putting military on our streets, is the cost worth it? No, it is
so in the
not.
one case, the cost of putting military in the streets is they're a cost of civil rights, and it's a cost of
and you don't think there's civil right? Hold on. You don't think it's a cost?
Too much money, but also but what you're saying with respect to the single perpetrator who's committed multiple crimes, that not putting it in the hands of the jury is actually the cost is a constitutional one. It's the loss of the person's individual rights of due process.
It's more than that, because what happens when they make mistakes? What happens when they hold the person for years without bail who hasn't committed any crime, who's ultimately found innocent? Because you've judged that he's a danger, or some judge has done it. And by the way, are judges beyond corruption? I mean, is that what we're arguing? Are police beyond corruption? Do they not fabricate evidence? I mean, do they not lie? I can tell you, when I went to trial, every cop that took the stand lied. I was guilty of sin, but they all lied. Right? So that's why you need to have due process. That's why you have to have trials to determine guilt. Because
how does the jury system in the case where everybody who is prosecuting you is lying, how does that help? How can the jury make those?
Because you have a defense attorney that's allowed to put on a case, call witnesses, present evidence, and the jury gets to decide who's more credible.
So
is it perfect? No, but it's constitutional.
In your particular case, was the defense attorney able to show that those police officers were lying? And if so,
yeah.
What penalty did those officers?
Well, there's a difference between the jury being shown that people are dishonest and demonstrating malfeasance in a court of law. But it was clear to the jury, in my view anyway, that people were lying. Had I not made a statement, I confessing my role in the whole thing, I probably wouldn't have gotten any trouble at all. But the bottom line was I gave a statement. So everything that, and I'm glad I did, because I deserve to be punished. But my point is that the jury did get exposed to the cops making ridiculous statements. For instance, the cop saying he was unable to search my house thoroughly because I had a pit bull. As if anybody's really going to believe that the police don't search houses when people have pit bulls in the home.
You know what they sometimes do with pit bulls?
Shoot them.
Yes.
You shoot them.
Yes, they do. Unfortunately, that is changing in many states. I think they are now considering dogs part of the family and not just property. So it's becoming harder and harder in some states for the cops to just do that kind of thing. There was a friend of mine in some liberty organization who made a documentary on this and how the laws are changing, and it's horrific to see that what police will do to somebody's dogs. And it doesn't have to be a pit bull either. It could be any dog. Lee, maybe Michael needs a Taylor Swift theme song. Okay.
Megan, I know it all too well. If you know, you know. All right, your turn. Capitalist thought of the day.
Well, we talked a lot about due process today.
I would say for the audience, so they don't think I'm being dishonest. Yes, it's my turn. But tomorrow and Wednesday, Mark is not going to be here to give it.
No, I am. You're
going to leave early.
Well, then why don't we just have an early show? Or are you saying you want to do you want to do the whole hour by yourself?
No, we're going to do.
No, you want to do the whole last half hour by yourself.
That's what I do. You said that you were going to have to leave early. You didn't say you were going to get here late.
No. I just assumed that my early out meant we did a shortened show.
No, I always stay with it. I don't half-ass stuff.
Shake it off. Check it
You
off.
know, I'm trying to, but you're fabricating rules and evidence, just like the prosecutor in question and the judge.
Oh,
Do you really want Mark? Should Mark be the one to
decide?
decide?
To give you a break. I'm trying to give you a break. You don't have to do the last half hour on your own. Yes, I have to leave early tomorrow and leave early Wednesday, because Wednesday I'm traveling actually for work. So, but I didn't want to ignore the show entirely and just worry about travel. I wanted to also do the show with you guys as long as I could. So we've been talking a lot about due process, folks. We've been talking a lot about the restrictions of the office of the presidency. We have due process for a reason. It subordinates might to right. Due process is important. The jury system is one of the main support systems of due process, folks. And the president has no power to do any of the things that he is doing today. And if he were taking his constitutional restraints seriously, he wouldn't be doing them. He would be going through the legislature. He could propose legislature. He could propose changes to the legislature to make changes, but he wouldn't be doing what he is today. An American Capitalist Party would try to right this ship. It would attempt to reassert the proper checks and balances and reassert the command of the Constitution over the people who are supposed to serve the Constitution and you. By mitigating force, folks. That's what an American Capitalist Party candidate would attempt to do. And in the meantime, drain the swamp. Many of the things that Milei is doing, we didn't get to this article, would also be aspects of what the Capitalist Party would attempt to do, but they would have to go through the legislature. Some things could be done through the executive, but it would have to be through the legislature and cutting lots of programs. Well, folks, big government means small individual. Small government means big individual, and we want you to be big individuals in your own life. So look, you got 23 hours now to check your premises. If you were thinking, hey, Trump's a good guy, what he's doing is great for the country, I want you to think about those premises for a while. Understand that the things that he's doing today can be done by a president from the opposite tribe. The way in which he's violating the Constitution today can work against you. And just because your tribe is happy with it today doesn't mean that you're going to be happy with it tomorrow. So when the Constitution is violated, everyone's rights are violated. Remember that, folks. Try to check your premises over the next 23 hours, and we'll see you tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat place, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern time. Until then, happy capitalism.
Nice.